Welcome to this edition of Draft Utopia, which will also be live streamed on YouTube immediately following the show. And Chris Ransom, Ryan Romero is joining me. We're back for another edition. We got a lot of big stories to get to today. We got the Chiefs-Raiders recap, a bunch of LA events we'll get to, including the Dodgers, Lonzo Ball's debut, and the LA Kings being the only LA team without a loss. We'll briefly touch on the teams from LA, both projected to pick in the top two of the Super Draft. And then at the end, we'll get to the draft game, where Ryan and I will break down, we'll take turns picking for each team in the first round, and we'll see where it goes. But right now, let's get to the biggest topic here with the big story with the Raiders-Chiefs game. It ended in a crazy ending. There were like 4 dead plays at the end of the game, and then Derek Carr threw a touchdown pass to Michael Crabtree. And this game was insane because it looked like the Chiefs were going to win, and then there were 2 penalties, and the Chiefs' time expired, and then the Raiders won. But Amari Cooper really stepped up for the Raiders. 11 receptions, 210 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the man for me in terms of stepping up and helping the Raiders win. I know a lot of people are going to give both quarterbacks credit, and they rightfully deserve that. Carr with 417 yards, Alex Smith with over 300 yards. Both quarterbacks played fabulous football, but I'm giving the credit to Cooper here because he got 2 of those 3 touchdowns for Carr, and it's pretty rare and special when a receiver has over 200 yards, especially on this Chiefs defense, which has Marcus Peters, one of the league's best corners. So I'm going to give Cooper all the credit here because this is not a tough matchup to win against Marcus Peters.
You know, I actually give credit more or less, though, to the Oakland Raiders offense, especially in particular Derek Carr. If you watch the game last night, as both of us did, in my opinion, I thought that he really showed more, I guess you would say, passion. He showed determination and that killer instinct to be able to want to close out and finish a game. Because to seriously get denied that many times and have that many ridiculous things happen on one drive and maintain your composure is absolutely amazing. Then on top of that, though, the Chiefs defense definitely showed a lot of gap and holes in there. I had written an article on there this morning, Draft Utopia. I mean, really, they could not demonstrate the discipline needed to be able to cover. I mean, they left wide open gaps. They really let the Raiders have their chance. I mean, if the Raiders didn't have this many drop balls, etc. like that, they would have been able to move down the field much quicker. So I also feel like we came away with a lot last night.
Yeah. Alex Smith had 25 for 36, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He displayed a valiant effort, but they came up short. Derek Carr went 29 for 52 with 417 yards. He wasn't as accurate as I liked, but he avoided turnovers. He played very good football. And honestly, I was torn on Carr and Cooper. I saw Cooper make the 2 touchdown catches early in the game, and I was like, well, Cooper's already at over 100 yards. I'm going to make him the player of the game, but I didn't realize Carr had over 400 yards until the end of the game. But you can definitely make a case either or. I feel like it's either or situation where you can't go wrong with Carr, you can't go wrong with Cooper. But it wasn't just Carr and Cooper. Jared Cook had 6 receptions for 107 receiving yards. Jalen Richard had 4 receptions for 45 yards despite being a number 2 running back. And Crabtree had 3 receptions, 24 yards, and the game-winning touchdown. So overall, as a team, as a whole, this Oakland offense clicked against one of the better defenses in the NFL. So you really have to give them credit. And this is the type of win the Raiders needed in order to turn their season around.
Well, I mean, look at Derek Carr, though, like you said, over 400 yards being thrown, but his receivers, though, too. I mean, over 300-something yards, too. And then I think combined was when it almost pushing 400 yards, too. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. You know what I mean? So that core deserves a lot more credit. But at the same time, though, I mean, here's a team, though, that's supposed to be that tough. So it makes me wonder, hey, is Oakland as disciplined as we think they are? Because they did come pretty close to losing that game last night.
Yeah, Derek Carr, 341 of his 417 yards came from Cooper, Crabtree, and Jared Cook, the tight end they signed from the Packers in the offseason. So that tells you a lot. And they said in free agency when they got Jared Cook that they were going to use him against the Chiefs. That was the game plan. That was the business plan. That was the pitch they made to Jared Cook when they signed him from the Packers. So that was basically what the Raiders pitched to him, and they delivered on their pitch. So Jared Cook with a big game, and this Raiders team is right back to where they need to be. And I'm looking here. I mean, the Raiders are definitely one of these teams that could be right back in this thing. It's really too early to say, but the Raiders could easily be right back in the thick of things. And my biggest takeaway here with the Raiders is they're 3-4 now, and looking at their schedule coming up, they started the year 2-0. They lost 4 in a row. They needed to win this game because they begin a 2-game road trip against the Bills and Dolphins. And then they get a bye week, then they get the Patriots in Mexico, then they host the Broncos. So the toughest part of their schedule is pretty much over, except for the Week 14, Week 15 games against the Chiefs in Kansas City and the home game against the Cowboys. Then you got the Eagles on the road on Christmas Day. So the toughest part of the Raiders' schedule is at the end of the year, but the toughest part for the early part of the season, that's out of the way. So, and it's a tough schedule. So the Patriots and the Broncos, those are tough opponents, but they get those opponents at home. My gut sort of tells me the Broncos will sweep the Raiders, but the Chiefs will sweep the Broncos. But we'll see what happens now, because Kansas City's going to come out. They're going to have to show a lot more intensity versus the Broncos next week, and we'll see what happens, because the Chiefs, this opens things up. Them dropping to 5-2 opens things up for a team like the Patriots or even the Steelers to move into that number 1 spot now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely going to have to see how things play out because there's so many different scenarios with the different teams winning and losing, especially with them losing.
Absolutely. And one thing the Chiefs needed to do that they didn't do, they had to run the ball a little bit more. I would have liked to see them run it a little bit more than they usually do, but it's not an overall deal breaker for me at this point because the Chiefs are still in great position to make the playoffs, and this was arguably the toughest game left on their schedule outside of the 2 Denver contests. This was the toughest game on their schedule, so now that their tough games are out of the way, I expect them to coast by and get enough wins to get into the playoffs. They're not done. The only question is, will Denver sweep them and make this interesting to the point where we see Oakland or Denver instead of the Chiefs in the division? That's really what remains to be seen. And my preseason pick was the Chiefs, so I'm sticking with that for now. I know you're probably going to pick the Broncos, but we'll see what happens with the Chiefs because Alex Smith did well, Travis Kelce did well at this game. There were points where I was asking myself when the Chiefs were going to put the Raiders away, and they kept settling for field goals on certain drives in the third quarter, and that pretty much killed their momentum.
Well, the other thing, though, too, is, I mean, give the Raiders some credit. I mean, Derek Carr's back finally playing healthy, and it looks like everything's grinding, everything's training the way that it should, so I really think that the Raiders are going to be more of a contender than what you're giving them credit for.
I agree. They are more of a contender than people are giving them credit for.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, look at how hard they played and everything else like that last year, and then putting that together again this year. And the only thing that went wrong was just Carr had gotten injured. But if you look at the game, I really don't think we have to worry about that as much anymore because they really gave him a nice little pocket to really step up and do.
Absolutely. And that was huge for Oakland because they needed this win. They could not afford to go to 2-5 with games still against the Patriots, the Broncos, with games against the Cowboys, the Eagles later in the year. The Raiders do not have that luxury. They're not going to come back from that. They still have a shot now, but it still feels like the deck is stacked against them. So we'll see what happens with the Raiders because this is an interesting scenario with where they're positioned right now and how things are looking as far as outlooks go.
You know, I agree with you very much so, but like you said, it was a must-win, and they ended up getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a must-win game for them, and
But, I mean, honestly, we got more than just a game, though. We got entertainment as well. We also got to see Marshawn Lynch. Honestly, I give him kudos for sticking up for his teammate. I feel like he did nothing wrong. I also found it absolutely hilarious that he snuck back into the stadium and ended up watching the game and got on the train with the fans. And apparently he had the whole train pumping and rocking and everybody laughing. So it really goes to show you that he's a pretty good guy.
he is a pretty good guy. And people like to
Screw that
troll.
guy.
People like to troll Marshawn Lynch and give him crap, but he knows what he's doing, and he's pretty great. I know another Broncos fan who I'm friends with, who I'm not going to name, called Marshawn a bitch. I'm not going to comment
Is
on
that
that.
right?
Are you saying my friend's right, Thomas?
In a way.
Whoa, bro.
I just want to, no, let me just say this. All I'm going to say here is I lost respect for pretty much everyone on the Raiders organization except for Derek Carr for what happened to Derek Carr. So, yeah. Moving on. I don't believe that was Marshawn, though. I mean, they got to give me proof. That snuck back in?
Yeah.
I gotta have.
I mean, I think it was him.
I mean, it looks like similar traits to him for sure, but
I bet it was him. I think Marshawn don't care.
To grab the ref. That was just kind of stupid.
I mean, that was probably a bad move. He's probably trying to grab the ref, but still. I mean, heat of the moment. And I mean, he's such a passionate player.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything dirty. Carr didn't give himself up. He was clean to hit.
Either way, Marshawn Lynch just being a good teammate in my perspective.
Yeah, he's being a good teammate because he got called out for not defending his quarterback just like the rest of his teammates did like a month ago. So now he just got to defend Carr. But like I said, I'm leaving it there. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, well, this loss really hurts the Chiefs' chances of getting home field now. Well, they could still theoretically get home field if they win out and go 14-2 like I projected them to last week, because I had them losing to the Raiders and then winning out, which is really the only way the Chiefs can get home field now, because I think the Patriots will lose to the Raiders in Mexico. I think that will be their only other loss of the year, and I think Pittsburgh will lose. Yeah, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will lose to the Patriots. So those teams, if those teams knock each other out, if the Steelers and Patriots manage to lose 3 games and the Chiefs win out, they can still do it. Otherwise, it looks like it's going through Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh has the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Patriots. So if all 3 teams finish with the same record, Steelers get home field, Chiefs get the first-round bye, Patriots get the wild card. And the Chiefs could theoretically knock off the Patriots in Arrowhead, and they could rig it so that the Steelers get another pass to the Super Bowl. That's how they could do it. That's how they could operate it. If the NFL was like that, that's how they could operate it.
Boys are getting a wild card?
Right now, I'm just going off the tiebreakers, Thomas. I'm saying that if the Patriots, Chiefs, and Steelers all had the same record, Steelers would get the home field, the Chiefs would get the first round bye, and the Patriots would get the wild card game.
Okay.
So, from that perspective, that hurts the Patriots and that helps the Steelers immensely. But right now, the Chiefs still control their own destiny, and if the Bengals win or the Falcons win, the Chiefs are still going to be in position to control their own destiny. But the Chiefs have to get out of this funk if they even want to win the division. They can't even look at it from a we're going to get home field standpoint. They've lost that leverage with these last 2 defeats to Pittsburgh and
They
Oakland.
really need Eric Berry. They really miss Eric Berry.
They do. And I don't want Chiefs fans trolling us saying Tony Romo jinxed us. Tony Romo's voice has caused us to lose the last 2 games. We all know that's completely false. But it's true, though. Romo called the Steeler game and the Raider game. So,
feel like you should give Tony Romo a shout out for not getting hurt yet.
Ryan.
What are you saying?
I caught this. Oh, wait. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I felt like we should give a shout out to Tony Romo for not getting hurt in the announcing booth, but yeah.
Yes. If the Broncos win the division, they better send Tony Romo a thank you note.
Yeah.
For jinxing the Chiefs with his commentary. But looking at this game, the Raiders, Derek Carr and Amari Cooper were the reason the Raiders won, and just an excellent offensive outing by the Raiders. I still think they're theoretically in the running to win at least 8 games. I don't know if that'll get them a wild card, but I think that Denver at 8 wins and the Colts at 8 wins is still conceivable. But if the Colts lose to the Jaguars this week, which we'll get to later, then things change and alter drastically. So we'll get to some picks at the end here, but let's move on to the other LA news. And that is, we'll start with baseball. The Dodgers knocking off the Cubs to get to the World Series. That was the biggest of the 3 LA stories, and the Cubs put up a good run. I mean, they were the first team since the Yankees to make 3 consecutive championship series titles. The Yankees three-peated from 98 to 2000, and the last team to make 3 consecutive conference championship games in the American League or the National League prior to the Cubs making 3 in a row is the Yankees. The Cubs only won 1 out of those 3, but that's not the takeaway. I'm saying the last franchise to be as consistent as the Cubs have been is the Yankees teams in the late 90s. So, yeah, that's what you got to look at here. And the Dodgers, they were my preseason pick. Back in March on Draft Utopia, I told everybody that the Dodgers were going to win the NL this year because they had the best pitching. They had the right combination of bats. So I'm not surprised that the Dodgers are here. I'm shocked that the Yankees, the team that knocked off my team, Cleveland, is up 3-2 over the Houston Astros. But the Yankees are unbeaten.
Still salty?
Yeah, I am. They're the commissioner's favorite team. I looked it up on Wikipedia. It says the commissioner of Major League Baseball is a Yankees fan. It's at the point where it's completely okay to put a Chief Wahoo middle finger sign in Rob Manfred's office. I'm completely on board with it. I'll even pitch in and help send a Christmas card if you want. We could even sacrifice a chicken and put it in his office. I'm cool with that. Like with the Major League, remember in Major League how they sacrificed that chicken in order to win a game? I'm completely cool with sacrificing a chicken and putting it in the commissioner's office.
I'll just send one to you and you can
Look, Roger Goodell suspended Brady over the Deflategate thing because he was salty. Gary Bettman tried to hit on my mom, and I still hate Rob Manfred more than both of those scumbags. So,
who tried to hit on your mom?
Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, like him, my dad, and Gary Bettman were all at a Bonefish Grill, and Gary Bettman was just flirting with my mom in front of his wife. I literally wanted to kick his ass and punch him in the face, but I know I couldn't make a public scene in a restaurant. It's a family atmosphere, so I just had to stand there and take it like an adult, which sucked.
You know, honestly,
you kind of lost the Justin Bieber.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like a head of, like, except for Roger Goodell, but like a head of a sports organization company, or just like a very sports figure hit on my mom. I wouldn't even be mad, to be honest.
Except for
like,
Goodell, which
this guy's hitting on my mom. So I mean,
except for Goodell.
What?
Except for Goodell, you said, Thomas.
Yeah, except for Goodell. Except for Goodell and David Stern.
It's like if you were going to have a beer with a commissioner, which commissioner would you pick? I would probably either pick Don Garber of Major League Soccer or Adam Silver of the NBA, because I like the rules that Adam Silver has instilled into the NBA.
Yeah, I'd pick Adam Silver.
I would pick either Garber or Silver. If I have to pick a sports commissioner to buy a beer or have a beer with, I would pick Garber or Silver. I wouldn't even consider the other 3 candidates.
I'd pick Paul Tagliabue.
Well, if we're talking former commissioners, yes, Paul Tagliabue, hands down. And if we're talking...
What, Ryan?
What about, like, Dana White?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Vince McMahon?
Oh, I'd love to have the beer with him. He'd be real funny.
Yeah.
Real funny.
Yes. But like I was saying, the Dodgers, they just have that team. They've got Kershaw, they got Maeda. I mentioned 5 pitchers in my top 50 for fantasy baseball at the beginning of the year on the Indians and 4 on the Dodgers. So that really speaks volumes to the depth of those rotations, and those were why those teams were my preseason picks. But I'm honestly looking at it like this, Ryan. If the Dodgers face the Yankees, they win the World Series. And if they face the Astros, it goes to 7 games, and it can go either way. I honestly think the Astros will win it if they get there, but I'll take the Dodgers just for the hell of it because they were my preseason pick to make the World Series, and it's like, screw it. At this point, it's like, screw it. I don't even really care. I'll just take the Dodgers just for the hell of it, but we'll see what happens.
What if I said I have a bold prediction? I feel like the Houston Astros are probably going to make it to the World Series, so it'll be the Los Angeles Dodgers in Houston.
Yeah, Tony Mario said back in March that the Astros would beat the Dodgers. That was his prediction back in March via an email, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but they got Verlander, they got Brad Peacock, they got Morton. Those guys have stepped up. Keuchel left Game 5 injured, but Justin Verlander's pitching today, so the Astros will probably win, and then anything could happen in Game 7, because Houston won't have Keuchel, their best pitcher. They won't have Verlander, their second best pitcher. And I think that gives the Dodgers an advantage in the early portion of the series. So I sort of think the Dodgers would take a 2-0 lead, but then Houston would win 2 in a row, and then it would go back and forth to 7, and then we'd see either team win in 7.
I feel like Houston could win it in 5, and that was going to be my prediction, though.
But if they don't have their 2 best pitchers, they can't beat Kershaw. They need pitching. You got to have pitching and batting to win. And I value the pitching element more.
In baseball, it's about momentum.
All right, guys.
That's what they have right now.
This is my prediction. I think whoever wins is going to win off a home run.
Of course.
In the final inning. A walk-off homer.
But I feel like the Dodgers, if the Dodgers get more time to rest, and they get 2 or 3 additional, because they get today to rest, and they get tomorrow to rest. I don't know when the World Series is going to start, Game 1. I'll look it up right now. I'll look up when it's going to start. But the Dodgers, okay, Game 1 of the World Series starts on Tuesday. So the Dodgers get today, tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday to rest. And they get home field. So they get about 4 days plus home field to rest for the World Series. I feel like that and the Astros not having Keuchel or Verlander until Game 3 of the World Series is why the Dodgers would take an early lead. But I think the Astros would win their 2 games at home. They'd win Game 6. They could steal Game 5 and win in 6, but I feel like for that reason, they'd put Kershaw or somebody on the mound for Game 5, and then it would go to 7, and the Astros would win in 7 if they made it. But I feel like the Dodgers have, with 5 days to rest until 4 days to rest, that gives them a huge advantage because the Astros and Yankees will wear out their pitchers in the next 2 days, and they'll only have 2 days to rest, where the Dodgers will have 4 days to rest, which I feel like gives them an advantage early in the series. But Houston would end up winning it. The Yankees, on the other hand, would get swept by the Dodgers.
Yeah, they would. I'm surprised the Yankees have made it this far into the playoffs. To be honest.
I am. It's like, me too. I did not expect that. But I do think next year they'll be the team to beat in the AL East. The Red Sox are going to have the Astros batting coach as their manager. And the other hire was Ron Gardenhire to the Tigers, which is just a horrible hire. So it's basically this year or bust for the Astros because they're losing their batting coach, and that's huge if they lose him. So
I mean, like I said, I figured the Yankees would make it this far.
Yeah, Mickey Callaway is the pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, and he's filled in for Terry Francona when he was sick, and he's one of the 4 finalists for the Mets job. The Phillies interviewed him, but they haven't really. I'm just not sure who the Phillies are looking at. They're looking at Chip Hale, I don't know who Chip Hale is. He's from the Athletics, Thomas, but the Phillies are actually interviewing Chip Hale.
Chip Hale?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you say he's from the A's?
Yes.
That's got to be an assistant or something.
Yeah, he currently works as the third base coach for the Oakland Athletics.
Oh, that's who it is. Because I remember seeing a guy with a uniform on the field named Hale, so I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that hire for the Phillies. I feel like a third base, you want a batting coach or a pitching coach who's got skills. Like you want a hitting coach.
For the head coach.
Yeah, if you're hiring a manager and you're promoting someone, you want to promote a hitting coach, a bench coach, or a pitching coach. You want to promote one of those guys. You don't want to promote a third base coach because a third base coach is like a running backs coach or a receivers coach. And if you promote that guy to manager without having him go through the trials and tribulations as either a bench coach or a hitting coach, that hurts them. And the Astros batting coach and the Astros hitting coach is also the team's bench coach. So the Red Sox made an awesome hire, whereas the Tigers made an awful hire with Ron Gardenhire. So we'll see what happens, but the Phillies are looking at different candidates. The Mets have narrowed it down to 4, and the Nationals fired Dusty Baker the day after the Red Sox got their manager, which makes no sense. They should have fired him and made the play for Cora beforehand. That was a horrible business decision by the Nationals. I agree that Dusty Baker needed to go, but I disagree with them waiting this long when 2 teams have already hired managers, and now you've got the Nationals waiting to make a move. So that's the part of this I don't like, but we'll see what happens with the Nationals because that's immediately the hottest job on the market right now because they pushed the Cubs to Game 5. So that's immediately the hottest manager job in baseball right now. So we'll see. So this is big news with but I think the Dodgers could beat the Yankees. But we'll see what happens with the ALCS. That's tonight at 8, and Game 7 will be tomorrow at 8 if Verlander wins. He should. So we'll see what happens with this series. And we'll get to the other news, NBA news. Lonzo Ball, 3 points, 4 assists, 9 rebounds in his 29 minutes with the Los Angeles Lakers. It wasn't the best game. He even tripped on one play and fell to the ground. So it was a horrible debut by Lonzo Ball. And LeVar Ball has been firing back, taking shots after the opener. So, yeah, I mean...
I think
Can I go ahead and defend him, please?
Yeah, I was going to defend him too, Ryan. Go ahead.
Thank you. You can call me Ryan Ball because I'm a lost ball child on this one. I truly think that last night was him doing what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to distribute the ball and take care of the team. Now, if you really look at the numbers, you had Ingram, 3 out of 15. What is that? That's like, what, a 25% shooting percent completion rate on that one? And then you had 5 rebounds and 12 points. The points were there and everything, right? But check this out. Lopez, though, had a great game. The center, who's going to dish him the ball. The point guard, Lonzo Ball. I think in the end, when it came down to it, Brandon Ingram was really the best player in this game, and I think that Lonzo played his position of running the true point guard on this.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lonzo did what was asked of him to do. It's like you said, he only played 9 minutes, right, Chris?
Yeah, 29 minutes.
29. Yeah, I think he was asked to run the floor, and he did that well, I think. So,
exactly. He was supposed to distribute the ball to Lopez and Randall and Ingram, and 2 out of 3 did their job. I mean, Clarkson came off the bench as well, and I think he had, 18 points or something like that. I mean, he had a real good game as well.
Everyone wants to say that he did bad dead. But he played fine in his rookie debut.
Yeah, and there's 3 NBA games featuring unbeaten teams tonight. You've got the Trailblazers and Pacers at 7. Both of those teams are 1-0. You've got the
Lakers.
The Trailblazers, the Portland Trailblazers, and the Indiana Pacers are both 1-0. That's
We're losing tonight. I missed the first game.
Paul George is on the Thunder now, though, so I don't know about that.
We'll win then.
Yeah, the Pistons play the Wizards in Washington. I expect John Wall to kick ass in that game, and then we've got the Cavs and Bucks on ESPN, where ESPN is going to get Ken's hopes up with Giannis, and then LeBron, they're going to rig it for LeBron. LeBron's going to win.
Yep.
Leave it to ESPN to torture Ken like that. You guys are assholes.
Yep. Sometimes Ken deserves it, though.
Really?
Sometimes. Because Ken can be a little egotistical at times. So.
Yeah, and the Pacers play, the Bucks play the Trailblazers tomorrow, so if Milwaukee beats LeBron and Portland beats Indiana, those teams would both be 2-0 heading into tomorrow night. And the Thunder play the Jazz tomorrow, which is crazy, but tonight, the Celtics are 0-2, and Gordon Hayward is not expected to be back this season. Danny Ainge has reported that he's done for the regular season, so...
Yeah. So I have a question, Chris.
Yes.
Real quick, I just gotta say this. I would like to just point out that the Toronto Raptors are probably going to be the 2 seed. I mean, I wish people would give Toronto more credit.
They will. I know Brian Bayless, the guy who runs the NBA page on our site, is a huge Raptors fan. He's a huge Raptors fan, so...
Okay. Question.
Well, no. Here, just hear me out, and this is why. Even though DeRozan had a poor-ass game of 2-9 last night, you had, what's his name, the center go 31 minutes, and he went 9 out of 17 for 23 points.
Right now, the Raptors have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. If the season ended today, they would have the number 1 seed. And the Celtics are 0-2 right now. So if they lose to the Sixers tonight, they'd be 0-3. And, yeah.
Okay, can I answer my question now? Or ask my question
Go
now?
ahead.
Alright,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So, the rookie, I missed the Blazers' first game, right? Do you know how well the rookies did? What's his name? Zach Collins and the other guy?
Zach Collins, the guy from
Zach Collins?
the guy from Gonzaga. He was out with an illness on Wednesday. He didn't play in the opener. He was out with an illness, but he will play tonight.
And who is he going against?
The Pacers center. I think it's Miles Turner. I think he's going up against him tonight.
What about Swanigan? Do you know?
No, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't really worry too much about it.
Yeah. Do you know Swanigan played?
Who?
Caleb Swanigan, former Purdue player.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember Swanigan.
He had 8 points in his debut with the Blazers against the Suns on Wednesday. He went 3 for 7 from field goal range. He had a 3-pointer, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. He showed a lot of promise in this debut. And I had a first-round grade on him, so smart pick by the Blazers.
Yeah, the only basketball game I watched is I caught part of the OKC game last night. A lot of it. I caught bits of it.
Yeah. So, we'll get to the next news. It's involving the LA Kings. They're the only NHL team without a loss through 5 games so far. They have an overtime loss, but no losses in regulation, and they are the only team without a loss in regulation so far. And they won 2 Stanley Cups back in 2012 and 2014. They have a lot of the same components. Can the Kings make another run this year? I mean, I had this team making the second round of the NHL playoffs and getting the final seed in the Western Conference, but they might even do better than that because right now the LA Kings are just playing fantastic hockey, but they don't even have the best record. It's like they are the only team without a loss in regulation at 11 points. They have Doughty, they have Quick, they've got great goaltending, a few good lines of defense, some quality offensive lines, but they're not even the best overall team in terms of points. The Blues have more points at 12 this year. The Tampa Bay Lightning have 13 points. The Toronto Maple Leafs have 34 goals scored this year, mostly NHL. They have 12 points. The New Jersey Devils with Nico Hischier are 4-0 on the road this year, and they are at 12 points this year. So, I mean, so the Devils are ahead of the Penguins right now, thanks to Nico Hischier. So that's pretty amazing, Ryan. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't think he'd be this good this early to the point where he'd have the Devils ahead of the Penguins 7 games into the season. This sort of shocks me.
Yeah, I was going to say that is quite shocking, actually, to be completely honest with you. That's kind of a surpriser right there, but in a way it was a positive one.
Like I said, I don't watch hockey for the fights, but all I know is Kerry Underwood doesn't. He should retire.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the Nico stats see what Nico's done. I don't even think right now Nico Hischier has 7 points this year in 7 games. 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, and a +3 ± ratio. And you look at that first line, we talked about it, the Taylor Hall, Kyle Palmieri, Nico Hischier line, because Palmieri and Hall are 2 of the best wingers in the NHL, but they've never had someone like Nico getting them the puck consistently, and you're seeing it pay off. All of those guys have at least 7 points or more in 7 games this year. Palmieri missed a game, but the point is that offense is red hot. It's clicking. And as long as that top line's healthy, the Devils are going to be in every game this season, Ryan. We talked about it. We knew this team would be good, but we didn't expect them to be this good. And the funny thing is, a lot of the teams in the top 5 of my NHL mock draft are in the playoff run. The Vegas Golden Knights, who I had at number 1, are in the playoff run. The Colorado Avalanche, who I had at number 3, are currently occupying the final wild card in the Western Conference. The New Jersey Devils, who I also had in the top 5 as my worst team in the Eastern Conference, they're winning the division that the Penguins play in. It's like, we're seeing a lot of surprises so far in the hockey season from those 3 teams, but do you think the Kings are a contender this year, or do you think one of these other teams that we've mentioned, like Toronto or Tampa Bay or even the Devils, is going to surprise us and make a run? Or are you buying the LA Kings, Ryan? All right, I'm going to buy the Kings. I'm going to buy...
Oh, my bad. I had it on mute. My bad. Must have started to sneeze and I forgot to take it.
I was just going to ask you really quickly, are you buying the Kings as contenders?
Oh, yeah, no, the Detroit Red Wings are my surprise contender out in the East. They're out 4-3 right now. The Kings surprised me, though, being like 5-0 and everything like that. But I'll tell you what, I expect the Predators to make a big move and maybe be a contender in the Western Conference.
I agree. Nashville and Edmonton were my top 2 teams in the Western Conference heading into the year. Edmonton has just looked awful so far. I mean, they were my pick to win the Stanley Cup. I had Edmonton and Boston in the Stanley Cup, and both of those teams off to bad starts right now. So I'm just really disappointed with their play. It's looking like Nashville is going to be the team to beat in the West, and I'm looking at the Kings as the possible challenger. I'm just surprised that the Vegas Golden Knights are starting off as good as they are. I'm not surprised by Pittsburgh and Columbus. Those were my top 2 teams in the Metropolitan Division. But the Devils with Nico Hischier are making a huge splash right now. Do you think they can maintain this momentum over the course of the season and win this division?
I think they can. I think it's very possible. You got to remember, that state plays with a lot of heart. Those people, everybody that lives there, they have heart. So I really feel like it's definitely a possibility.
LA Kings have Downey, the best defenseman in the NHL. That's why they're in this.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Hey, I have a question. So, this is my question. More or less than 33 wins for the Coyotes? 0-6 start.
Yes, the Coyotes are 0-6-1. They have 1 point. They're the worst team in the NHL, and they're the front runner to win the Rasmus Dahlin sweepstakes. Well, they have to win the lottery first. Look at Colorado. They were the worst team in the league last year, and they ended up picking at 4th in the draft. And the guy they drafted isn't even playing this year. So the Avalanche have just been good, much better this year, but the Coyotes are just... The Coyotes hired a 28-year-old as their general manager, and he's like 26 when they hired him. That's basically like hiring me and putting me in charge of a sports franchise. That's why they're... I feel like you have to be in your 30s and you have to have a little bit of experience before you become a GM. Hiring a GM who's my age is a complete disaster, and the science shows it.
I'm almost 30. Does that mean
That's like hiring Sean McVay as the head football coach in the NFL.
Sean McVay's 30 years old. He's my brother's age. He's Ryan's age. We can relate to that. He's still more of a Gen Xer than a millennial. That's the thing. He's like right on the cusp, but he's technically Gen Xer instead of a millennial. So, all right. So that pretty much covers
my
it.
spirit animal is a panda with shades. That's all I gotta say. Keep going, Chris.
All right. So I'm just surprised that the Edmonton Oilers are starting off as bad as they are. They're easily the biggest disappointment. Both of my Stanley Cup predictions are Boston and Edmonton are both out of the playoff race at the moment, and you got the... It's just interesting. I'm just really surprised by this. Toronto is doing well. Tampa Bay is doing well. Tony told me Tampa Bay was going to go to the Cup this year, and I just dismissed it like it was nothing, but here they are. They're in great position right now. 13 points, best in the NHL. There's a lot of teams off to strong starts. I think the Kings have played the best hockey so far, but the team in the East that's impressed me the most is the Toronto Maple Leafs. This team, with the way they're scoring goals, their defense still a work in progress, but they're winning games. They're getting 6 to 7 goals a game. They got 6 goals on the Red Wings, Ryan. So Toronto getting 6 goals on the Red Wings, that's clearly impressive. And I think they're a conference finals between Nico and last year's number 1 pick, Austin Matthews, would be great for ratings. So I'm just throwing it out there. But I know the Crosby fans don't want to hear that, and their team is still in the thick of things. You can't sleep on the Penguins. They have the experience, and they've been here before, and they're still in the top 3 of this division, and they're only behind by 3 points at the moment. So each win gets you 2 points. It's an 82-game season. There's still a lot of hockey left to be played. I'm sure we'll revisit some hockey stuff, but I'm buying the Kings as contenders in the West. That was our NHL topic. We'll quickly touch on LAFC and the LA Galaxy, the 2 soccer teams. One's an expansion team. One has more MLS Cups than any other team in the league. These teams are picking 1 and 2 in the draft, most likely if the Galaxy lose, which is pretty rare. We've never seen 2 LA teams pick 1 and 2 in the draft in any sport. I've always wanted to see it, whether it be the 2 LA baseball teams or the basketball teams or the NFL teams. I've always wanted to see 2 LA teams pick at 1 and 2 in the draft, and now we'll finally get that with soccer. And there was a guy from Wake Forest who has 11 goals and 12 assists, and then there was Gallagher, the Notre Dame player I said to Ryan. And if the Galaxy are looking at a striker, this might be the guy to take, because this guy is faster than both Wild and Ruiz on tape, and we watched him yesterday, and he was really impressive. So I just wanted to get to that really quick.
Are you talking about that guy, the guy that I thought had good footwork?
Yeah, the Notre Dame player, because I saw his tape, and I was like, wow, this guy is faster than Wild or Ruiz.
No, Chris, no, he's not faster than them, but he does have better footwork, I'll give you that.
Like, his agility and his footwork and hops is just incredible.
Well, no, hear me out too, though. I feel like he also has that instinct to close out a game and want to finish it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I feel like the other ones, you might be able to get that instinct after they play in the league for a couple of years, So I'm wonder if he'll make more of an impact.
Yeah, because Gallagher had a game-winning goal on Syracuse in that highlight reel with 18 seconds, that clutch factor. That's there with Gallagher.
Well, exactly. I mean, it wasn't even just the clutch goals that he was scoring. I mean, look at some of the passes that he was doing, too. I mean, he's very aware of what's going on. I mean, suddenly, I never even heard of this guy, and Gallagher's on my radar now. So, so far, to be honest, if I had to rank the top three, in my opinion, based on who has the most potential, I would say the most potential goes to Gallagher. I would say the best skilled will probably go to Wild. But I would say the most hearted and someone that's going to sit there and really lead your team, as long as he stays healthy, he could jump up to number one. But after the injuries, Ruiz kind of moved down to number three.
Yeah, Ruiz is definitely... Top Draw Soccer updated their top 100, and they put Albert Ruiz at 26. I think that's a little bit uncalled for, and a little bit doesn't even begin to express how much I disagree with that. And the thing that they also failed to take into account is they failed to separate the homegrown players that aren't draft eligible from the players that are draft eligible. So when you look at it from that, Lindley and Lillard have homegrown deals with the Fire, meaning they're not eligible for the Super Draft. So John Baccaro, who has 11 goals and 12 assists for Wake Forest, probably the number one pick. I won't argue with that. Gallagher's probably 2. They put Hilliard Arce. Hilliard Arce would be 3. I can't argue with that. Kubel at 4. I saw Kubel's tape. He looks a lot calmer, but Kubel, there were issues with his communication and maturity up until this year. He's finally got that together. Aaron Herrera out of New Mexico. I'm not sure if he has a homegrown deal or not, so I'm just on the radar with him, but he's on New Mexico. Eric Williamson leads Maryland in goals, not Gordon Wild, so I have no problem with him getting a Generation Adidas offer. Edward Opaku for Virginia is a junior. He has 7 goals this year, probably looking at a Generation Adidas offer. So Williamson and Opaku will probably get a few of those Generation Adidas offers, and then you're looking at Gordon Wild, and then those are the 3 that are looking at the GA offers. And then some of these other players are just creeping up on the radar. Marcelo Acuna, Christopher Muller out of Wisconsin. He moved ahead of Albert Ruiz. I don't know who half these strikers are, but you look at this striker draft and you say, well, you look at the strikers in this class, you got Gallagher, you've got Williamson, Opaku, that's 3, Daniel Muscovsky out of UNLV, that's 4, Wyatt Omsberg is a defenseman, he's not a forward, that's not accurate, Mauro Cicero, that's 5, Foster Langdorf, 6, Gordon Wild, 7, Kofi, 8, Alan Wynn, 9, Alfonso Pinero out of Albany, 10, Acuna, 11. Top Draw Soccer has 13 forwards in the top 25 ranked ahead of Albert Ruiz. That tells you this is going to be a very deep forward class, because Ruiz is going to get picked in that first round. There's 23 MLS teams, and with 2 of the players in the top 25 not being eligible for the draft, that means Ruiz will get picked in the first round. He may fall to the late first round, may have to impress the MLS Combine, but he's going to get picked in the first round. I have no doubt about it. He will get picked at some point in the first round of this draft. He's just too talented. And the way he responded to the interview and how refreshing and motivated he sounded, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind he's getting picked in the first round. I'm just curious where he's going to fall to.
Hey, Chris.
I mean, doesn't that... I think that's a disservice to Ruiz to put him at 26, but at the same time, I could see him falling. He seems like the one forward of those 3 who has the best chance to fall to a playoff team, Ryan.
Hey, Chris.
Thomas. I want Ryan's 2 cents on this, and then we'll move on to the Oregon Trail.
I just wanted to say something about soccer real fast.
Okay.
That guy from New Mexico, is he anything like Nico Hansen?
The guy from New Mexico, Aaron Herrera, he's a left back. He's a defender. And
okay. He's relevant then.
He's not a goal-scoring player. He's a defenseman. But he's like 5'11", 160. He's an outside back. He can play on offense, but He's more of a defensive player. He has 5 goals and 5 assists this year, though, and he's a defenseman. That's pretty good for a defenseman, though, Thomas. 5 goals, 5 assists for a defenseman in 13 games. That's pretty good.
Yep.
3 game-winning goals, too. Maybe this is a guy to take a look at. I'm just not sure if he's got a homegrown deal, because he played with Real Salt Lake's Academy as a kid. So I'm not sure if he would, they would sign him to an Academy deal, and he would be no longer eligible for the MLS Super Draft, or if he would be eligible for the Super Draft. There's no question if he's eligible, he's going in the first round, Thomas. I think we can both agree on that. The question is, will he be draft eligible, or will he have the homegrown deal with Real Salt Lake? That's why I'm sort of torn on Herrera.
I got you.
But you're right, he's a good player. I've seen his tape. Any thoughts on this forward class? It just looks like an incredible class. 13 forwards in the top 25, plus the fact that you've got Albert Ruiz right outside the top 25, which I think is insane, Ryan. I think he's a top 25 talent without a doubt.
I mean, I'm still putting him in my top 8 forward talent, as you said, but absolutely insane. I mean, especially when people are sitting there pushing him outside the top 25. I mean, it really goes to show you how deep this class is going to be.
It's going to be a deep forward class. I mean, last year's class wasn't that deep, but there were a few players that I considered as Generation Adidas candidates, including Tomas Hilliard-Ars, who led Stanford to back-to-back championships in college soccer, Gordon Wild, Tim Kubel, and Albert Ruiz. All 4 of those players were in my top 11 for the 2017 Super Draft. And before I found out Grant Lillard had a homegrown deal with the Fire, he was in that conversation as well. So there's a lot of talent in this class. And if Herrera has a homegrown deal, that's 3 of the top 7 players having homegrown deals. And that means Ruiz would jump from 26 to 23, which would guarantee him a spot in that first round in the top 23 picks. I'm just shocked that he dropped to 26 on Top Draw Soccer. I still think he's a first-round talent, and I think any team who takes him in the first round deserves an A-plus grade. I feel that strongly about Albert Ruiz delivering on tape.
They get a participation award if they choose him in the top 8.
I mean, the top 8 players, 3 of the top 7 may have homegrown deals with MLS teams. I wish Top Draw Soccer would put an asterisk on players who have homegrown deals with MLS teams so we could identify that and move the players up. I don't have a problem with the rankings. I disagree with some of them, but the one thing I wish they would do is they put an asterisk on players who have homegrown deals with teams, because that's a big thing with me, because that helps us identify which players are in the draft and which players are not in the draft. And I think that's sort of a difference maker, Ryan, when it comes to identifying this stuff. As scouts, we want to be able to identify that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with you on that. I mean, as scouts, it's really hard to be able to sit there and analyze individual talents, but in the end, each guy kind of has his own thing that they like to do, or those habits that are hard to break, or some that you can't even teach.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Moscovi out of UNLV is in the top 10 and Ruiz isn't, so I'm looking at this Moscovi player. He had a hat trick earlier. He had a hat trick last year, but he's from UNLV and he's projected, he's moved ahead of Ruiz. This guy, it's like UNLV is 6-7 this year, and this guy has 9 goals, 5 assists, 23 points in 9 games. So a goal a game, yeah, I can understand that. I can understand why he's moved ahead, because 9 goals is pretty damn good at this point, especially if you're a senior. So Moscovi is a player we need to keep an eye on as well. There's a lot of players in this class. Mauro Cicero's doing well. I think they're looking at that and they're saying this is why it is this way. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of soccer left to be played out. We can get to that at the end, but let's focus in on Thomas. I'll give you the floor to talk about whatever you want for the Oregon Trail, and then we'll use the second hour to play round 1 of the draft, NFL draft game, where we'll take turns picking for teams, and then we'll call it a show, and we'll make picks for Week 7 as well.
Alright, guys. So, as you know, or I hope most of you know, I know Chris knows, that Oregon State fired head coach Gary Anderson a couple weeks ago. And we're currently in the search for a new head coach. But with our defensive backs coach and assistant head coach Corey Hall, who just coached his debut last week against Colorado, we dominated all 4 quarters, but we didn't get the W. We missed a 51-yard field goal because of a stupid penalty. But in one game, Corey Hall, former NFL DB for the Atlanta Falcons, I think Denver for a short time, and another team, played like 10 seasons, showed more capabilities than Gary Anderson did in 3 years. He's a fantastic motivator. He got the team all pumped up with all the scrutiny going on for that game. He went back to the roots of what Oregon State does best. Forget wrecking all the damn football. And as a result, wrecking all went off. 25 carries, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns on Colorado. And Corey Hall's not even calling the plays. He gave that to offensive coordinator Kevin McKinnon, who I don't really know much about. But in one game, I'm already impressed with Corey Hall, more than I ever was with Gary Anderson. I also hear that he's a pretty good recruiter, even though I don't think he's ever recruited anybody in his life. So, what are your thoughts on that? And I'm still not done with the Oregon Trail, by the way.
That's pretty impressive,
Chris, what are your
Thomas.
thoughts?
That's pretty impressive.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so next week, guys, I got a big decision dilemma. So, Ryan, I told Chris about this. Next week, me and my dad have 4 tickets to the Oregon State Stanford game in Corvallis. The problem is that's Thursday night, and my Dolphins play that night, televised. So my decision is, do I want to go to the Corvallis to watch my Beavers get annihilated by Stanford, or do I want to watch my Dolphins play Thursday night and struggle for 4 quarters on offense? And I haven't been to a Beavers game in 4 years, so that is the big
Thomas, you know what I gotta say? You follow your passions, buddy.
I know. I mean, I do want to see Oregon State play Stanford because I've never seen a Stanford game, and I haven't seen Ryan Nall play live. And I kind of want to be your guys' eyes and ears for Draft Utopia, since Bryce Love is going to be there and stuff, and Ryan Nall's going to be there. But at the same time, Miami's playing the Ravens, and I kind of want to see them. But I don't really want to see Jay Cutler struggle on offense for 4 quarters. But, like, it's one of the only few Dolphins games that are televised this season.
Why do you think he would struggle?
Because it's Jay Cutler. Against the Ravens defense, of course he's going to struggle. Our offense is one of the worst in the league right now when it shouldn't be.
Why would you even think that he would be good? I mean,
Because it's the Ravens defense.
But that doesn't make any sense, though. I mean, the Ravens' defense are always going to be solid because they have, like, their coaching and stuff like that. But, I mean, I don't know why you're disrespecting the Ravens so much, I guess is what I'm saying.
All right, guys. We'll, if you want to keep going, you can. But when we're ready, we'll start the draft game. And the entire draft game, the visuals for the draft game, that will be streamed on Google Hangouts. So I've got a podcast on TalkShoe, I've got a podcast on YouTube, and a separate segment for the draft game with the players on our website, which will be on Google Hangouts. So you'll get to hear Ryan and Thomas on 3 different platforms today. And also
Oh yeah.
We'll
All
each
right.
pick for.
I was gonna ask.
There's
for
32
that.
NFL teams, so we'll each pick for 10 teams, and we'll auto draft for the Browns and 49ers because they are not worthy of having picks. I think every mock draft in the entire country has Sam Darnold with the 49ers, whether it's at number 1 or number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and give the 49ers Sam Darnold at number 1. He's off the board. If you want to criticize, I think this is a good fit for Darnold because the offensive tackle, Trent Brown, has finally stepped up at right tackle next to Staley. So Darnold has 2 quality offensive tackles. They just need to get him a number 1 target in round 2, and this team will be ready to go with the defensive additions of Reuben Foster and Solomon Thomas ready to step up in year 2. So I like this pick for the Niners. If either one of you wants to criticize the Niners for taking Sam Darnold, who... They're looking at him, they're looking at Rosen, they're looking at Josh Allen. They're not looking at Baker or Lamar or Mason. They're not looking at
They
those
should be
guys.
looking at Josh Allen and Baker.
But they're looking at those 3 specific QBs. They're looking at Darnold, Rosen, and Josh Allen, and they've scouted Darnold the most. So that's a clear indicator that they want Darnold if he declares. And I feel like if the Browns get the number 1 pick, Darnold will go back, and it'll cause me to reprogram this entire draft game. So we'll give the 49ers Sam Darnold at number 1. And at number 2, the Cleveland Browns, Joey wants the Browns to take. And I said it on his show yesterday. I said it yesterday on his show that Saquon Barkley can have an Ezekiel Elliott type of effect in Cleveland, and Kaiser can revert into that game manager role, and he needs that. I mean, let's face it, he needs that.
The Dak Prescott role. Yeah. Yep.
So, I know Thomas wants to pick for the Dolphins, who I have on the clock at number 8. So we'll give we'll let all. Do you want to pick at 3, Ryan, with the Chicago Bears? Because I think the Denver Broncos are at 21. If we did every 3 picks, you could still pick for the Broncos at 21 in that scenario, and then I would pick at number 4.
I don't know how you do that math, Chris, but that is something special, so I'll say yes.
All right, so the Chicago Bears are on the clock at number 3. The only players off the board right now are Sam Darnold and Saquon Barkley. Everyone else is still on the board. Who do you want? You could get an edge player like Arden Key. You could get a second offensive tackle to pair with Charles Leno like McGlinchey as a right tackle. You could get a receiver. You could go with Derwin James. Who do you want to take for the Chicago Bears at number 3?
I'll take Mike McGlinchey.
And they get him as a right tackle at number 3. The hometown kid from Notre Dame goes off the board to the Chicago Bears at number 3. And that really screws the Giants here because the Giants needed Mike McGlinchey, and now they have to either reach for a left tackle, but there's no left tackle worth taking here. I mean, Okorafor is a top 10 talent. He's not a top 5 talent. So I'm going to give the Giants Josh Rosen. Now, I want to give the Giants a left tackle and have them build around Eli, but since Ryan took Mike McGlinchey, he screwed up my entire strategy. So now I have to give the Giants Josh Rosen and punish them.
This is my battleship.
Thomas, you're on the board here at number 5, and I'm trying to think who's at number 5 because it's the Jets. The Jets are at number 5. So I just screwed the Jets out of a quarterback with Josh Rosen, unless you want to give them Baker Mayfield at number 5. Do you want to give the Jets Baker Mayfield, or do you feel like they will take another player?
No, they're going to take another player.
What player are you thinking?
Well, I know they have other pressing needs, like especially at receiver, but they also kind of need a running back because, Matt Forte is pretty much doesn't have much left in the tank.
Are we going to piss off Jets fans and give them Bryce Love and have them boo so loudly that Jerry Jones will have to restrain Jets fans from the draft? Are we going to do that? Or are we going to piss off the Jets fans and give them Bryce Love here at number 5?
As much as I would like to, you know what? Let's do it, Chris. Let's piss off the Jets fans.
The New York Jets select Bryce Love at number 5. Boo! The classic boos from Jets fans all across the nation as our atmosphere, Ryan. Any thoughts on this with the Jets taking Bryce Love at number 5 as a running back out of Stanford? Any thoughts on this, Ryan?
I mean, I guess I'm not going to be against it. I'm not necessarily for it either, but I mean,
I don't
won't
hate
say
the pick,
no.
but I
I'll just
also
leave it at
don't
that.
love it either. I sort of think it's a reach from a talent standpoint, from a scouting standpoint. However, it's the Jets. They do this type of stuff in the draft every year.
And I'm still salty they did this year, and we're looking for payback this week, so yeah.
Yes. But number 6, Ryan, you are on the clock with the, what team's on the clock here at number 6? The Chargers. You could get Derwin James out of Florida State. They need a safety. Or you can give them Baker Mayfield and get them QB to groom behind Phillip Rivers.
Ooh.
What do you want to do here, Ryan?
Now, well, all those are great ideas. I personally think that the Chargers are basically set as far as everything goes. I'm going to probably agree with the Baker Mayfield pick. I feel like if you go ahead and get him over anybody else and let Phillip Rivers groom himself, etc., underneath a young lad, or groom Baker Mayfield underneath him, that it can actually turn into like a deadly combination right there of solid offensive talent. So I'm going to go Baker Mayfield on that, especially because he won't have as many of the turnovers as Phillip Rivers, but he'll still have that cocky attitude that makes Phillip Rivers Phillip Rivers. So I feel like that'd be really good.
All right, so the number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers select Baker Mayfield, and they groom him a la Pat Mahomes. Now, I was hoping the Chargers would take Derwin, but Ken LeBlanc wants the Browns to take Derwin James at number 1. So we'll make Ken LeBlanc happy, and we'll give the Browns Derwin James to pair up with Jabril Peppers at number 7 with the Texans pick. And your Dolphins are on the clock. Quentin Nelson is right there on the board for your Dolphins at number 8, Thomas. Is that who you're going with, the top guard in the draft at number 8?
Of course.
Yep.
We need all the guard help we can get, and we didn't take a top guard last year, and we were retards for it, so I'm taking Quentin Nelson. Hopefully Isaac Asiata becomes a starter. So that's Laramie Tunsil, Isaac Asiata, Quentin Nelson, Juwan James, and then if Pouncey comes back, if not, then we get a new center, and you're looking at a pretty good young offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars are on the clock at number 9 now. That's just how it turned out. I'm going off the mock draft that I did last week, not the actual official NFL standings. So, I mean, the Jaguars, they don't need a player like Arden Key off the edge. The top player after Arden Key is Mason Rudolph on my board. We could also give the Jaguars Lamar Jackson, though. He's also still on the board at number 9. Ryan, you pick with the Jaguars. If they're picking at 9, do they get a QB and release Blake Bortles to clear cap space, or do they?
Don't replace
what do
Blake
they do?
Bortles, Ryan. Don't.
What are you going to do with number 9 pick? You could also go with a receiver here, with Allen Robinson being a free agent. You could also go with a receiver here at number 9. What do you want to do, Ryan?
All right. Who else available right now?
All the receivers are on the board. Mason's on the board. Lamar's on the board. None of the guards, though, that would help Jacksonville are on the board. But
you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stick with my gut on this one and go with Lamar Jackson.
Damn it! Don't replace my boy Bortles.
They don't have to start Lamar right away. They can sit him for a year and let Bortles play his contract out. Let him develop.
Exactly.
So Lamar comes off the board.
If he develops underneath Bortles, he has a chance to develop that pocket game too.
Yeah, so number 9, the Jaguars take Lamar Jackson here at number 9. And that brings us to number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals. And they need offensive line help, so we're going to give them Chukwuma Okorafor, my preseason number 2 offensive tackle. They need an offensive tackle in the trenches really badly to replace Andrew Whitworth, so they get Okorafor at number 10. Thomas, the number 11 team on the board is the Green Bay Packers. They could get Arden Key, the top player on my board, as a pass rusher for depth behind Clay Matthews. They could also get the number 2 players, Mason Rudolph. The guy I gave them was James Washington. But what do you think the Packers do if they're picking this high at 11? I don't think they pick this high, but if they theoretically do, what direction would the Packers go in here? Because there's a lot of players still on the board.
Well, this might surprise some of you guys, but I think they should go Darius Geis.
Wow. Darius Geis comes off the board here. And Darius Geis, my preseason number 1 running back. 3 running backs gone. So all the first-round running backs are now off the board here. And we'll see what happens. Number 12 is, I believe the number 12 pick belongs to the Buffalo Bills. And what would the Bills do here at number 12? You can get, if the Bills are 7-9, there's a number of options. You could
Mark Stubia off.
We should. I've had Mark Suba on some of my older podcasts. Ryan, what do you want to do with the Bills at 12? Mark wants Minkah Fitzpatrick out of Alabama. So are we going to give Mark what we want, or are we going to give him one of the Oklahoma State players in James Washington or Mason Rudolph at number 12?
Now, this scenario include Tyrod Taylor staying.
Who?
I didn't understand what he said.
What did you say, Ryan? Can you speak louder?
Does this scenario involve Tyrod Taylor?
It's up to you, Ryan.
I'm going to say if Tyrod Taylor stays in Buffalo, let's go ahead and get James Washington out of
Yes.
Yeah, and James Washington comes to Buffalo. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock at number 13. I am picking for them, so I'm going to go with Bradley Chubb and pass on Arden Key because Bradley Chubb runs a 43 scheme, which fits Dallas more so, and Chubb and Charlton is a scary tandem for years to come. So Bradley Chubb to Dallas at 13. Number 14 is the Baltimore Ravens. The top 3 players on the board right now are Arden Key, Mason Rudolph, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. And they just took Marlon Humphrey. They drafted a lot of pass rushers. I don't think any of these players fit a need. The Ravens could go Rashaan Evans here, but the Ravens really need a running back, and all the first-round running backs are off the board. So the Ravens are kind of screwed in this scenario here. So what do the Ravens do at 14, Thomas? Do they get the next best receiver?
Who's the next best receiver you got?
Next best receiver on my draft game is Anthony Miller out of Memphis. He had 100 yards on UCLA.
Oh, yeah,
something,
he's good.
Something Kirk.
Let's see. They are pretty inept at offense, huh?
Anthony Johnson out of Buffalo had a big week too. He's my number 3 receiver at the moment. Jake Wienecke is my...
Christian Kirk had.
Christian Kirk fell to round 2, but he's my favorite receiver, and I have no problem with mocking him to the Ravens since he's still on the board here at number 13.
Your top 3 receivers is surprising to me, to be honest.
Anthony Miller had 200 yards and 4 touchdowns on the same Connecticut defense that Cortland Sutton only had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on. So Anthony Miller's legit. Like him or not, he's legit. Chris Carter even said he's a first-round receiver on Twitter.
Yeah, I know, he's good. I like the guy. Let's see here. How big's Anthony Miller?
5'11", 190, same height as Kirk. Anthony Johnson out of Buffalo is 6 foot, 207 pounds, 6'2", 207.
You know what? I'm just gonna give him Cortland Sutton.
Interesting. I have Cortland Sutton at number 49 on the draft game. I've got to scroll a ways down. I have like 10 receivers ahead of Cortland Sutton because of the catch radius thing, but Cortland Sutton, they might fall head over heels for Cortland Sutton, so it's not a bad pick. Most other draft people have him way higher than I do, so I'm not going to fault you for that. And it's the Ravens.
Yeah,
they draft for upside.
The reason why I put him there is because he has the look of like an NFL number 1 receiver. And that's why I think the Ravens are in love with him, so that's why I connected with that pick.
He doesn't play the part consistently, but he looks the part. And that's why scouts are salivating over him, because he's not consistent. He's not a finished product, but people just love his size and big playability and speed. And they're overlooking everything else, thinking they can coach that up.
Yep.
I think he just needs to get paid because, I mean, he showed the skill. He knows he's on the radar right now, and now at this point, he's just like, hey, get me paid and get me in the system. I mean, he's coming at a smaller school. It's not like he's competing for a national championship right off the bat. So I think that's his big thing, too, is he wants to be on a winning team.
The Oakland Raiders are on the clock at number 15, Ryan. There's a lot of players on the board. The top 3 players are Arden Key, the pass rusher out of LSU, who's a 34 guy. The Raiders run a 43. Mason Rudolph is still on the board. Minka Fitzpatrick's on the board. And then the next best player is Rashawn Evans, the Alabama linebacker, who's on the board. The Raiders, they got Navarro Bowman at middle linebacker. Do they still go with a linebacker in this scenario, or do they take someone else, Ryan? What do you want to do with the Raiders at 15?
You know, based on what I saw on last night's game, I saw a very powerful offense, but then I also saw a defense that kind of gave up too many chances as well. So I'm going to go ahead, though. I think that what they need is a solid secondary player, so I'm going to go with Minka Fitzpatrick.
And they get Minka Fitzpatrick. The Raiders get Minka Fitzpatrick at 15. They drafted Garyon Conley in the first round, but he has not panned out. So the Raiders go secondary in the first round for the 3rd year in a row. Sorry, Raider fans. Ryan's a Broncos fan. We apologize. The Broncos fan in him has caused him to torture the Raiders, and we apologize for that here at Draft Utopia. The Detroit Lions are on the clock at number 6. The Lions are on the clock at 16 here, and I'm going to go Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle out of Clemson. He just fits what the Lions want to do, and he gives them that big-time player in the interior. They lack that since Sue and Fairley have left. Haloti Ngata is a free agent, and logistically, this pick makes a lot of sense here. Thomas picks for the Rams at number 17, and Thomas could replace Thomas could replace Jared Goff with Mason Rudolph. He could. I don't think he will with how good Goff's playing right now, but he could, and that's the scary thing. I mean, Arden Key would fit that 34 defense as well. He's on the board. Connor Williams gives him help at the offensive line if he declares coming off an injury. So what do you think the Rams do here at 17, Thomas?
As much as I hate Jared Goff, you are right. He's playing good football right now. So I'm going to give him Arden Key.
Arden Key falls off the board at 17. He goes to the Rams. And Ryan's on the clock here at number 18. And the team picking at number 18 here is the Arizona Cardinals. Do they get Mason Rudolph here at number 18, Ryan, with him being the only QB left and him being the only number 1 QB, only round 1 QB left on the board? Does he go to the Cardinals here at 18, Ryan?
Now, hear me out. I would say yes, but I feel like the better quarterback. Who all is available for the quarterback?
Well, Sam Darnold went to the 49ers at number 1. The Giants got Josh Rosen at number 4 because you took McGlinchey at 3 with the Bears. Baker Mayfield went number 6 overall to the Chargers. Thanks to Thomas, or no, thanks to you with your second pick. You gave the Chargers Baker Mayfield, and you gave the Jaguars Lamar. So Mason's the only QB left, unless you want to reach for a round 2 QB like Allen or Falk, who had 5 interceptions, or Browning. So Mason's really the only guy the Cardinals can get if they want a quarterback here. And he's the best player on my draft game at this point. That's still on the board.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and go with Mason. Based on all those things that you just told me, I would take Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph to the Cardinals at number 18. Number 19, the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock. And I'm debating whether to go Connor Williams or Ronnie Harrison, because Connor Williams boosts that offensive line, but Ronnie Harrison is a special safety and a game changer, and I just like him better on tape. So I'm going to go. I know the philosophy is to take the best player on the board, but the Falcons are set at linebacker. They don't need Rashawn Evans. Connor Williams has some injury problems. I don't think they're going to be comfortable with that, so I think they go with Ronnie Harrison out of Alabama at number 19 and pair him with Keanu O'Neal. Next up at number 20 is the Saints, and Thomas will be picking for the Saints at number 20. At number 20, he'll be picking for the Saints. So what do you want to do here, Thomas? Do you want to give them a linebacker, an offensive lineman, or a pass rusher to pair with Cameron Jordan like Clelin Ferrell?
I think personally, I think they need Jesus, specifically on the defensive side. So I'm going to go ahead and go with defense here. Who is the top linebacker available?
The top linebacker available is Rashaan Evans out of Alabama. He's also the best player
yeah?
on the board.
Okay, who's the pass rusher you said that was available?
The pass rusher is Clelin Ferrell out of Clemson. And the other player they could go on defense is defensive tackle Daron Payne, who I mocked to Denver at 21. So you could keep Ryan from getting the defensive lineman that Denver could use here, too, at number 20, right before his Broncos pick.
Colin Farrell, like the actor Colin Farrell?
Clelin Ferrell.
Oh. I'm going to give him the Alabama linebacker. What's his name?
Rashaan Evans?
Yeah.
So the Saints select Rashaan Evans at number 20. Number 21, the Broncos are on the clock here, and the best player on the board is offensive lineman Connor Williams, who you could get as a right tackle next to Bowles. But you could also get Daron Payne as a 3-down defensive lineman at defensive nose tackle to bolster this defense, which is what Josiah wants the Broncos to do. Orlando Brown is also on the board, so you could get Orlando Brown as a right tackle and pair him up with Bowles. What do you want to do here, Ryan?
I'm going with Ryan. Damn.
It's Ryan's pick. The Broncos are on the clock. His team's on the clock.
I'm going with Connor Williams. I want the right tackle to pair up with Bowles.
Even though you're a huge Orlando Brown fan, you're still going with Williams because he's my best player on the board here?
I really like Orlando Brown, but I feel like Connor Williams kind of has that big Texas attitude that I feel like our offensive line needs, and I feel like he would be that same type of attitude that Garrett Bowles has, and I feel like when that pro day happens, he'll impress a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Excellent value there. He's my number 1 player on the board as well at this point, so that's an excellent pick for Denver. Number 22 is the Colts. I have them going 8-8 and making a wild card. Clelin Ferrell doesn't really fit what the Colts want to do. Neither does Daron Payne. I'm going to give them Ogbonigba Onkwarko out of Oklahoma, the edge player, who's 6'1", 241. Okoronkwo. Yeah, I'm giving him to the Colts at 22.
That's a good pick.
And the Seahawks are on the clock at 23, Thomas. And they need a left tackle really badly. Do we get back-to-back Sooners here with Orlando Brown going to Seattle, Thomas?
Since I hate Seattle, I'm going to screw them over here. What other needs do they have or need? You know what? Never mind. I hate Russell Wilson getting pressured like that, so I'm going to help him out and give him the left tackle that you're talking about.
Orlando Brown of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then number 24, Ryan gets to pick for his next favorite team, the Vikings. How ironic. I'm sure you love it that the Vikings are at 24 and the Broncos are at 21, and you get to pick for both teams back-to-back here, starting at 24.
You know what? I'm actually thrilled to death about that. Right now, I'm trying to think of who the Vikings would need that would be available.
They could get a receiver here. There's a ton of good receivers outside of Sutton and James Washington.
They have good receivers.
Yeah, look how good their receivers are already, Chris.
They got Treadwell in the first round 2 years ago. He hasn't panned out yet. They've got Thielen. They've got Diggs. Receivers not an immediate priority, but it's there if they want to go that route. They could go Daron Payne, the 3-down defensive tackle out of Alabama here, because Sharif Floyd has never played a full 16-game season, and Daron Payne's right on the board here. I don't think they would go Clelin Ferrell out of Clemson. He's the best overall player, but other than that, I'm not sure what they would do. Edmonds is a linebacker. They could go Harold Landry out of Boston College, but mainly the best players on the board are all receivers at this point. So if the Broncos, what position do you think the Vikings will target in the first round? I don't think it'll be a QB. I'm thinking it'll be either a QB, a guard, or a receiver, and there's no guards available until the third round. This is a very tough spot for the Vikings to be in. Are there any players that you think are surprise players or players we need to keep a better eye on? I know Washington and Sutton are gone, but every other receiver's on the board.
I think there is.
Excellent. I think that there definitely are some positional players that are available, but would be the best available tight end right now.
Adam Brenneman out of UMass is my number 1 tight end, but I have him at number 76 on the board. So that would be a big
My
reach.
top tight end is Laulu Pututau from BYU.
I don't have him on the draft game, but I'm not sure what the Vikings would do here. I'm guessing defensive tackle. If they don't go receiver, they could get the Alabama defensive tackle to replace Sharif Floyd, because Floyd's never been able to play a 16-game season. That's a huge problem. So,
I'm going to agree with you on that, Chris. That's actually some really good logic. I like that.
So we'll go Daron Payne. This is a tough situation for the Vikings, but they get Daron Payne at 24. Number 25, the Carolina Panthers are up. I'm picking for the Panthers, and we're going to go with Anthony Miller. It's Miller time in Carolina. Get your Miller time beer out, Cam Newton. Go ahead and dab when you score and drink some Miller time, because you're going to be throwing it to Anthony Miller. You're going to be throwing a lot of touchdowns to Anthony Miller. So Cam Newton gets Anthony Miller to pair with Christian McCaffrey, and he's that kind of slot receiver the Panthers fall in love with. I know they already got one of those guys in Curtis Samuel, but they're going to go with Anthony Miller here. They take Miller time here. And number 26, the Washington Redskins are on the board. All the best players on my board right now are receivers, and Pryor's a free agent at the end of the year. Does Washington take a receiver here, or do they go with a linebacker like Tremaine Edmonds out of Virginia? Because 3 of their linebackers are free agents, and the Steelers are up next, and they need a linebacker too.
Who are the Redskins receivers right now?
Terrell Pryor, he's in a contract year. Their number 2 target is their number 2 target outside of Pryor is Josh Dotson, their first-round pick. They also got Crowder out of Duke. So they've got some solid weapons, but they could use one more if Pryor leaves.
Okay, who are their linebackers?
They've got Mason Foster, contract year. They've got another linebacker in a contract year, and they added a Zach Wood or whatever his name is from North Carolina, who 1-year deal. So
how are their DBs looking?
their safeties. The problem is there aren't really any safeties on the board. They're loaded at corner, but there's not really any safeties on the board that are first-round material.
All right, I'll give them a receiver. Who are your top receivers?
Well, Anthony Johnson is my top receiver out of Buffalo. Jake Weineke out of South Dakota State's also there. The only receivers off the board right now are Washington, Sutton, and Anthony Miller out of Memphis. Christian Kirk is available. Do you want to give Washington Christian Kirk here at 26?
No, I want to give him Jake Weineke.
All right, so they go Jake Weineke, who I have to Washington in my mock draft at 26. The South Dakota State receiver goes to Washington. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers are up on the clock, Ryan. Do they go with Tremaine Edmonds, their biggest needs at inside linebacker? They need someone next to Shazier. Do they go Edmonds here? 6'5", 250, 4'5", 40 time, projected to run a 4.5 flat. Is that who the Steelers get here at 27 with this pick, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll go with Edmonton at that point.
All right, number 28 is the Tennessee Titans. They already have enough weapons with Decker, with Corey Davis, with... I know Corey Davis hasn't played these past few games, but they have enough weapons. We're going to go Joshua Allen out of Kentucky. Sorry, Thomas. Josh Allen out of Wyoming has to wait. And Ryan could have picked Josh Allen to go ahead, and we'll see what's on the board. But you get to pick for Tampa Bay here at 29, and I'm feeling like Harold Landry and Isaiah Oliver out of Colorado are the 2 best players on the board defensively. So is that the route you're going to take, Harold Landry out of Boston College, or do you want to get another defensive end? Or another defensive player. Holton Hill's still on the board. Jair Alexander's still on the board. Tarvaris McFadden's still on the board. Jordan Whitehead, the Pitt safety's on the board.
Their corners are pretty good with Hargraves and Brent Grimes.
Yeah. The receivers are pretty good too, so this is
Yeah,
tough.
I personally think Harold Landry is a second rounder, based on the tape that I showed you that one day.
I saw that. I saw that game live. So if you don't want to take Harold Landry, I'll scroll down to my second-round prospects, and you can torture the other city in Florida by reaching for someone here. It's still on the board if you want to take him here. He's the left tackle. He's a right tackle, but
let's give him McFadden.
Tarvaris?
No, not McFadden. No. I meant Archie Lewis.
Archie Lewis, the Boise State offensive tackle. We'll go with him then. That's a good pick for them. I have him to the Raiders at 46 in my real mock draft, but we'll give them him at number 29, and then each of us gets to make a final pick. And I'm gonna give Thomas the chance to pick for the Eagles at 31 because I want to pick for the team at 30 though. That's the Buffalo Bills. You get to pick for Mark once again. You went James Washington before. And the best players on the board are receivers. So does Buffalo double up at receiver, or do they get a corner like Oliver to pair with Jair Alexander to keep the Patriots from getting a corner?
Shit, that's a good question. I'm going to go with, who was the corner that you had mentioned?
Oliver, 6'1", 193.
Now, what other corners are available at this point?
There's quite a few. There's a Holton Hill out of Texas who can play corner or safety, 6'3", 200 pounds. There's Jair Alexander out of Louisville, who's the preseason #1 corner. And there's Tarvaris McFadden out of Florida State. There's quite a few corners still on the board, Ryan.
There's Tyler Horton from Boise State. There's Jalen Davis from Utah State.
I haven't added those guys to the draft game, but I'll get to that when you get a second.
I am probably going to go ahead and go with Jair Alexander.
So the Bucs are getting James Washington. So that's their first round. Thomas, you're up for the Eagles. There's a lot of good receivers still on the board. You could get Christian Kirk here with your final. You could get Carson Wentz, another weapon in Christian Kirk if you want to.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them Philly boys some Christian Kirk up in this place.
And the Patriots are up at 32. And while we could use a big weapon like Anthony Johnson, I feel like this draft is very deep at wide receiver. And I'm going to go Isaiah Oliver. I know I should take the best player on the board, like Mark says, but we still have a lot of good weapons to be special. But I just feel like Isaiah Oliver, we're going to move on from Malcolm Butler. That's going to make cornerback our top need. And since I have a first-round grade on Oliver, since I mocked Oliver to the Patriots, Oliver is the pick. The Colorado Buffaloes corner goes to the Patriots at 32. And we'll reveal some of the players that fell to round 2 really quickly. Anthony Johnson, who's number 25 on my board, fell to round 2. Harold Landry fell to round 2. Calvin Ridley out of Alabama fell to round 2. Auden Tate fell to round 2. Alan Lazard fell to round 2. Simi Cobbs Jr. fell to round 2. So a lot of these teams...
Oh, I forgot about Lazard.
Lazard could be a great fit for a team like the 49ers when he's paired with Darnold. And then Mark will blame Lazard. You'll blame Darnold. It'll be great. It'll be a hoot if that happens in real life. But, like, Whitehead fell to round 2. So there's a lot of guys who fell to round 2. I'm not going to read through the entire list. Josh Allen fell to round 2. So there's a lot of guys who fell to round 2. But the point is, there were 1, 2, 3 players out of my top. Only 3 players in my top 32 fell to the second round. So that's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Good job, guys. So that's the draft game on Google Hangouts. What we're going to do now is we're going to get to some NFL predictions. And if we finish all of our predictions by 4 p.m., we can start round 2 of the draft game. But I really want to keep it at 1 round. Is that fair?
How about we do like 5 picks in the second round?
Right now. And then we go to predictions. What do you want to do, Ryan?
Go on football pick. Or not that pick.
All of the other 14 games by 4 p.m., we can... if we finish all of the predictions by 4 p.m., we can start round 2 of the draft game and see where we get to before time runs out. Because we're not going to podcast past 4. And we will leave the draft game up on our Google Hangout because we might start round 2. It's something we're on the fence about right now at the moment. And the first game is in Tampa Bay. They go to Buffalo. They face the Bills. I'm going with Buffalo in this game. Their defense is just too good right now. But this is a game that it was 3-2 in favor of Buffalo. It was not a lock by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to go with Buffalo at home against Tampa Bay.
That's hard, so I'm going Buffalo too.
Ryan, you going Tampa Bay or Buffalo?
As far as that goes, I mean, Tampa Bay's been playing a little shaky for me. I feel like Buffalo has actually been playing like the close games and seems to really be picking up on like games and everything as far as like what they need to be doing. So I am probably going to go with Buffalo on this, and I will say the spread will probably be like, I'm thinking probably like 54 points. No, that's too much. What's 24 plus 24?
48. The over-under is 41, and I definitely... Wait, that's for the Cincinnati game. The over-under for that is 41. But I'm going to... The over-under for the Buffalo game is... Let me get that really quick. My computer's being a little slow right now at the moment, but... Nothing's freezing. It's just a little bit slow. The over-under is 40 points. It's very low. So I'm going with Buffalo in the over in this game. But the over-under at 40 points is very low. Much lower than it should be.
All right, next game.
Ryan didn't make his pick yet. He wanted
No,
like
I
the
did.
over. So Ryan's going with the Bills.
Yeah, I did. There you go.
Bengals play the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and I think this is going to be a very close 28-27. And both these teams have good number 1 corners, Dre Kirkpatrick, and Joe Hayden. They both have number 1 receivers in A.J. Green and Antonio Brown. So whichever team wins the receiver-cornerback matchup is going to be the team that wins this game. And I'm going to go with the Bengals in a shootout, 28-27 over the Steelers in an upset this week.
I'm going Cincinnati by 3. Who do you got, Ryan?
Who was playing again?
It's Steelers. It's Cincinnati and Pittsburgh
I'll go Steelers because they're in Pittsburgh and not Steelers.
Ryan's going to pick the Steelers, and the Steelers are still my pick to win the division, but I'm picking the Bengals to win this game. And I'm going to give Ryan's preseason prediction of the Bengals winning this division some hope for another week. Next game features Baltimore and Minnesota. It's in Minnesota. Minnesota might get Bridgewater back. I'm taking the Vikings. This team does not lose at home, and the one game they lost at home was to the Lions. So I'm going to take the Vikings 23-21 by 2 points over the Ravens.
I'm taking Minnesota, but I don't think... I know they'll have Bridgewater back, but I don't think so. I just keep sticking with him. And I got them winning by 3 as well. Brian?
Yeah, I'm going Vikings. I think that they're going to start Bridgewater, though.
Interesting. Next game features the Jets and the Dolphins. It's in Miami. And I'm going with a shutout. Dolphins 28, Jets 0. The Dolphins deliver the goose egg to the Jets.
Miami's hungry for them Jets after they embarrassed us the last time. Miami's got the momentum in the Whalers side. They got to take down the Jets. They're going to stop a Michael right through them. Stone Cold Steve Austin style. I'm taking Miami by 2 touchdowns, baby. Let's go. Woo!
And the Jets, 3 out of 5 people at Draft Utopia picked the Jets. It's the first time this happened. I figured Donald Trump would have a better chance of getting reelected than 3 out of 5 people picking the Jets in any one week this season, but the Jets beat this team last time.
They're going to run this Sunday that you don't ever choose against the Dolphins when they're hungry against them Jets. They're going to learn.
All right.
Who you got, Ryan?
I am going to go with the Jets.
Ryan is sided with the people of Draft Utopia over Chris Ransom. Oren, Jesse, and Jason all picked the Jets over the Dolphins this weekend. So Oren is siding with the people of Draft Utopia versus Chris Ransom this weekend.
Wait, who are the other people that chose?
Oren Sheary, Jesse Lucas, and Jason Bantle, three of the writers who help out the picks page. They all went with the Jets over the Dolphins. So Ryan is siding with the people of Draft Utopia over me. And that's okay. Let's move on to London. Let's move on to London.
The Dolphins played a really good game of football, a strong team and all that, but I really feel like the Jets are actually starting to pick up a little bit, and I feel like the Dolphins just choke. No offense, Thomas.
You're going to learn today, Ryan. You're going to learn today.
The next game features the Cardinals and the Rams in London. It's at 1 p.m., not at the early time at 9 a.m. It's at 1 p.m. So it's in London. I'm taking the Rams. This is the first of our 4 Draft Utopia locks of the week. The Rams are a unanimous pick here to win. Are either one of you guys going to crack the lock this week by picking the Cardinals over the Rams in London?
You know what? I still believe in Arizona's defense, despite them playing bad lately. They're still a good defense.
They lost Marcus Golden to injured reserve, so that means Chandler Jones.
Well, that's that. Okay, I choose the Rams. Brian.
Yeah, I think the Rams.
Next game features the Panthers and the Bears, and surprisingly, this isn't a lock of the week, which is shocking. Someone picks the Bears. Someone picks the Bears each week. I know week 1, Jesse picked the Bears over the Falcons. Week 3, Tanya picked the Bears over the Steelers. The Bears have avoided being a lock all season, excluding the week 2 and week 4 games against the Packers and their week 2 contest. But the Panthers and the Bears, I'm going to say the Panthers win this game, but Trubisky has a 3-touchdown, no interception career day against this defense, and he actually plays like he doesn't suck this week. So the Bears lose, but Trubisky has a great game. He has his best game of his career so far. But the Panthers win 28-21.
I'm choosing Carolina 45-10, almost twice.
Yes. All right, Ryan, what do you think?
I guess I'm going to go ahead and go with the Carolina Panthers. And I feel like Cam Newton goes 3 touchdowns for 320 yards.
Excellent. The next game is the Titans and the Browns in Cleveland. I'm going with the Titans 17-13 in a defensive game where the Browns cover the spread. Kaiser is starting again, and Mariota had to rely on staying in the pocket with his injury, so he won't have that luxury against the Browns. That'll be a defensive game, but the Titans will do just enough to win this game. The Titans are our second lock of the week on Draft Utopia. Is either one of you going to crack the locks here? Neither one of you cracked the lock with the Rams-Cardinals game. Is either one of you going to crack the lock and pick the Browns?
No, I'm choosing the Titans. Mariota just came off his best game of the year last week, even despite being injured. And we all thought that Monday night game was going to be boring as hell, but it turned out it wasn't. So I'm choosing Marcus Mariota, going with the Oregon boy in Tennessee.
Yep.
Ryan, who you got?
My head says pick the Titans, but my heart says pick the Browns because Deshaun Kaiser are going to come in motivated. You get benched, then you get a pep talk from the coach saying, hey, got to do this, kid. And next thing you know, he's saying he's excited. So I got to go with Cleveland on this. I'm going to say that they win. They're going to squeak one out. It's going to be 28-27.
Next up, we have the Saints and the Packers. And I did originally pick the Browns to win this game back in the preseason before changing my pick. Saints, Packers. It's in Green Bay. I'm gonna go with the Saints 30-20. They win. With Astros game if they go to Game 7. Wait, Game 7's tomorrow night. Game 6 is tonight. So Joe Buck can call this game, and he can still call an NFL game the next day. He can do a double. Fox can work him into overtime or whip him like a horse at the Kentucky Derby.
I got Green Bay. It's hard to win in Lambeau. Regardless of who's that quarterback, it's going to be hard to win.
That's an interesting selection. 2 of the 3 writers at Draft Utopia picked the Packers. So, including the person in the overall lead, they picked the Packers this weekend. So, just saying.
Yeah, it's hard to win in Lambeau, and I think Brett Hundley's capable of.
He didn't get any practice reps before the Vikings game. He's gotten an entire week of practice now.
Yeah. So, who you got, Ryan?
Saints.
Brian's picking the Saints like myself. Next up, we've got the Jaguars and the Colts from Indianapolis. I'm going Colts 17, Jaguars 16.
I'm going Jags. I mean, they've been hot and cold this week, or this year, all year. I think it's mostly due to coaching. They lost last week, so I think they get a W again this week. Fournette rips the Colts a new asshole times over. And I think they give Jacoby Brissett a horrible time on defensively. So I got the Jags winning.
I'm going with the Colts by a point in upset. You, Ryan?
I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars win, and I think that they win probably 28-20. And I'm going to say Leonard Fournette has 153 yards.
Next up, we have Dallas and the 49ers. This is our third lock of the week. CJ Beathard is making his first start, and I'm going with the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott's still rule eligible, so his suspension may not take place until Week 8 or Week 9. So I'm going Cowboys. They whoop the 49ers. This is our third lock of the week.
I'm going for your lock, actually. I think the Rams or the 49ers are going to get the upset. Dallas hasn't been playing very well. And despite the 49ers' record, they have played in some pretty close games. So I think Dallas' secondary, as always, is suspect. I think CJ Beathard can rip them a new one. And I'm going to take the 49ers in the upset.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they take the 49ers to level of hurt. I think it's going to be probably 14-34.
So you take the Niners?
No, Cowboys.
Oh.
I'm not crazy.
Yes, you are, but I'm more crazy.
Shh, Thomas. Shh. The adults are talking. Alright.
Alright.
Next game
is the Seahawks and the Giants. This is our final lock of the week. Seattle's Denver, or was that a fluke win? I mean, the Legion of Boom doesn't get to see Odell Beckham, so
I don't think it was a fluke win. I think they got the win because of all the adversity they're facing. But I don't think they're going to continue it against Seattle this week. I got Seattle.
This is my upset of the alert because I feel like the Giants definitely can win this game. The victory against Denver was not a fluke. I watched the game. As hard as that was to watch and swallow, I was so disappointed. I will definitely say that you're a team that realize, hey, we don't have our starting receivers, so they're actually playing with a fire underneath their butt.
Pete Carroll has never lost in MetLife Stadium. Jason Bannell brought that stat to me. He said that Pete Carroll's 4-0 versus the Giants in MetLife Stadium, and they beat the Jets last year in New York, so
Pete Carroll is 5-0 in MetLife Stadium when you take that into account. I like the Seahawks. Ryan's picking the upset. He's cracked 2 locks. Thomas has only cracked 1. Next game is Broncos-Chargers. Joey and I actually disagreed on this game on the Evolution Network yesterday. Joey took the Chargers. I took the Broncos, 24-21, with Denver winning by a field goal once again.
That's why I like you, Chris. You know football. Denver will win this game.
Denver will win.
I originally had the Chargers winning this game back in July, for the record, but I flip-flopped to Denver at the last minute, so... Because I refuse to have 3 6-10 teams in my mock draft. I refuse to have 3 6-10 teams. So the Chargers get screwed out of a win this week. Next up, we have the Falcons and the Patriots in a Super Bowl 51 rematch. I want to see James White, number 28, Stephen Gostkowski, number 3, take the coin toss to remind the Falcons of the lead they blew. Please make it happen, New England.
I hope they'll do that too, to be honest.
Because it's the best way to troll the Falcons, and it would go so under the radar that nobody would notice it until the game started.
They should also somehow do like a 17-0, the lead they had against Miami. So both of our teams can rub it in their faces. Because we basically softened them up for you guys this week.
Yep. The Falcons, I'm going to overtime. This game goes to overtime just like 51 and the Patriots win.
I'm going to say, was this game a lock or not?
No. 3 people pick the Patriots and 2 people pick the Falcons.
Where is it at?
It's in New England.
Oh. I'm going to go with New England. Patriots 14. Patriots.
The final game features Washington and Philadelphia in Philadelphia. The only person who picked Washington was Tanya. Everyone else picked Philadelphia. So, yeah. I'm guessing we're both on board with Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I want to say Philadelphia, but once again, if it is Philadelphia, I'll go ahead and say Philadelphia 24-21.
All right. Coming up on Sunday's podcast, we'll have we'll try to break down the receiver rankings. I'll try to do that tonight or tomorrow, where I'll update all the receiver rankings and get the SWAT reports up for the receivers and update that so I can break down the receivers in depth. If we don't get that updated, I don't know what we've got planned for Sunday, because we've already talked about the things on the Evolution Network on Sunday, and since I'm letting Thomas produce next Friday's show, since the Dolphins are playing, since Oregon State's playing, I might put Ryan in charge. I don't know what I'm going to do for Sunday yet, but I do know that we have something planned for Sunday at 9 a.m., maybe let Ryan and Joey each have an hour to the show. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet with that, but before we sign off, we will play the final 3 minutes. We will start the second round of the draft game and play the final 3 minutes of the draft game. 2 minutes now because it's 3:58, but right now it is 3:58. We started this thing at 2:03 actually, so that means we're technically still on the air for about 6 more minutes if you want. I can do 3 to 6 minutes where we can knock out some picks. All right, so let's do 6 minutes. So until the video thing hits 2 hours on the QuickTime player, we'll be on the clock. Time is money here. Number 33, the number 2 pick, 49ers are on the clock at number 33. What receiver do they get to pair with Sam Darnold? Well, should we give him Anthony Johnson out of Buffalo since he's the best player on the board? I think we'll do that, and we'll auto-draft for the Browns. And they get Calvin Ridley here because he's the best receiver on the board. Now we're back to the Giants. They pick here. Ryan picked for the Giants. He went with... No, wait. I picked for the Giants in round 1. And I went with Rosen. So the Giants really do need a left tackle, though. But I'm going to give the Giants Auden Tate with Brandon Marshall being a free agent. And that's going to give Ryan the chance to draft Alan Lazard for Mitchell Trubisky if he wants to take him here at 37 6.
Ooh.
You know, I will go with Alan Lazard.
And that means the Jets are up. And the Jets, they went with, they passed on a quarterback in the first round. They went with Bryce Love. Simmie Cobbs Jr., the receiver out of Indiana, is the top receiver on the board here.
Who? What's his name?
Simmie Cobbs Jr. out of Indiana. He's the top receiver on the board.
I disagree.
McFadden, the corner from Florida State here, because the Jets Claiborne.
Give him McFadden.
All right, the Jets get Tarvaris McFadden. Next up at number 36, we have the Dolphins. I believe the Dolphins pick at 37.
Dang it, I want to pick for Dolphins.
You can pick for the Dolphins too, Thomas. You can have back-to-back picks here. Do you want a cornerback/safety like Holton Hill, or do you want Josh Allen here? Josh Allen is the only second-round QB on the board. He hasn't been picked yet.
You know exactly what I want, and I've been saying it for weeks.
Josh Allen to the Dolphins. Okay, done.
Yep.
Next up is the Chargers. Ryan picked Baker Mayfield in round 1. Do you want to get a safety here in round 2, or do you want to get like a cornerback/safety like Holton Hill who can play both spots?
I'm going to go, I like Holton Hill at that position just because when it gives the Chargers depth too. I feel like that's also a team that gets hit with injuries.
Yeah. Next up is did I skip the Chargers pick? I think the Chargers were supposed to skip. Yeah, the Chargers were 5-11. We had the Dolphins at 6-10. Doesn't matter. The Chargers would go Holton Hill. Thomas will go Josh Allen. Either way, it doesn't matter. The Browns are up with the Texans pick, and Joey said he wants the Browns to get multiple weapons, so they get Simmie Cobbs Jr. since he's the best player on the board. That's not how I have it in my mock draft, but I don't really care. Joey wants multiple. 41, the Bengals are on the clock. I'm guessing we're going with Jordan Whitehead, the Pitt safety. He had a first-round grade, then he got suspended for a DUI. Joey went on a rant about how these coaches need to order Ubers for their players or tell them to order Ubers. Should we just give them Whitehead since they need a safety? And they...
Yeah. Yep.
Next up, the Packers at 42. This is a tough pick, Thomas. Peter Kalemba out of Stanford would be a great fit for the Packers.
Peter Kalembai?
Yeah, I have a second-round grade on him.
Pair him up with his old buddy and teammate Blake Martinez.
Awesome. Done. Next up at number 43, we have the Buffalo Bills. We gave the Buffalo Bills Jerome Baker here, but Ryan, you picked for the Bills in round 1. Do you want to go with Jerome Baker here, or do you want to give them Harold Landry here? Because Landry's the only player with a first-round grade on the board, but Buffalo's one position that they're strong at is defensive end. So this is a tough pick for that reason.
I think Landry should move to a linebacker, honestly.
Who would be the best available offensive guard right now?
We have third-round grades on both Wyatt Teller and Will Hernandez, but both are available if you want to reach for a guard here in round 2.
God. All right.
Or you could take Martez Ivey out of Florida as a guard here. We have a late second on him.
I think I'll go with Martez Ivey. I want to be able to give Tyrod some protection and depth in the future.
All right. Next up here is Buffalo picked at 43. Number 44 is the Cowboys. I could give them Harold Landry, but they already got Bradley Chubb in the first round. So also they get Chubb, they get Baker. I didn't think Baker was on the board, even though I mocked them Armani Watts, and they could use another safety. So I'm going to go Jerome Baker. Number 45 is the Jaguars. They need to get a weapon for Lamar. The best weapon on the board is Deontay Burnett.
Whose pick is that?
Ryan picked Lamar in the first round.
So is this Ryan's pick
Yes.
or mine?
This is Ryan's pick.
Okay.
Who's the best available player right now?
Harold Landry's the best available player, but the Jaguars are stacked at defensive end. Deontay Burnett would be a weapon to replace Allen Robinson if he leaves in free agency, and I figure if you give the Jaguars Lamar in round 1, you got to give him a weapon in round 2. You replace Robinson.
I feel like the wide receiver class is going to be fairly okay, but who would be the top 3 best wide receivers right now?
Deontay Burnett out of USC, who had 100-yard games against Western Michigan, Texas, and Stanford, is currently my top receiver on the board. We just had a wide receiver run end with Kirk, with Ridley, with all of those guys getting picked early in the 2nd round.
I think Cedric Wilson would be the next best receiver from Boise State.
I don't have him in my draft game at the moment, but I'll make sure to watch his tape immediately following the show.
All right, who do you have on your draft game after Burnett?
Dylan Cantrell, do you have him
Equanimous
there?
St. Brown is still on the board. Equanimous St. Brown. I have a late second on him because he hasn't produced
like
consistently, but we'll go with him.
I had written an article about him a couple of months ago. I remember him. I like St. Brown. I do.
So the Jaguars get St. Brown here. Next up at number 46 is the Raiders. I gave them Archie Lewis, and I picked for them. We'll give them the next best offensive tackle in the Raiders need a linebacker though, and Ryan picked. I don't remember. It was Ryan who picked for the Raiders, and giving Ryan back-to-back picks just does not seem fair. So I'm going to give the Raiders the best linebacker on the board here, and their inside linebacker, Roquan Smith out of Georgia. We'll give them that. And then I think the next team up after the Raiders is the Ravens, who Thomas picked for. Ty Johnson out of Maryland is on the board, so is Nick Chubb. But you could also get a weapon like Deontay Burnett out of USC, who Ryan passed on. What do you want to do here?
I don't know who's Johnson who?
Ty Johnson. He's a Maryland running back. He's the best running back on the board, and the Ravens can pick him.
I haven't seen him. So I'll give the Ravens Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb to the Ravens. They pass on the hometown kid, even though he's ranked higher. Number 48, the Buffalo Bills. They are on the clock here, Ryan, and you can pick for the Bills with the Rams selection. I think I picked for I forget. Which one of us picked for the Rams? Thomas picked for the Rams in round 1. So do you want to make this pick, or should Ryan make this pick? Because this is the Rams pick, but they traded it to Buffalo. I haven't made a pick in a while.
Make it. I'll do it.
All right.
What are their needs?
LaShawn McCoy they might cut LaShawn McCoy after this year. They could use Ty Johnson. I mocked him to Buffalo, but
I thought you said the Rams needed this pick. LaShawn
the Rams
McCoy's on the
traded
Bills.
this pick in the Sammy Watkins deal.
Oh.
This is Buffalo's pick, but they got it from a trade with the Rams.
Oh, so the pick is the Rams?
The Rams traded this pick to Buffalo. I'm just going to take Ty Johnson because this is too confusing.
Okay.
Moving on to number 49, I gave the Cardinals Cortland Sutton at this spot, but he's gone. We just give him Burnett. We give Mason a weapon in Burnett here.
Yeah.
I guess that's really the only thing we can do. I know Ryan picked for the Cardinals, but that's pretty logical at that spot. Number 50, Vita Vea. I mocked him to the I can't remember what team I mocked him to. I think it was the Falcons. I mocked him as a 3-down defensive tackle. The Falcons really need a guard, but yeah, we'll go with Vita Vea. This is unbelievable. Harold Landry is still on the board at number 51. This is unbelievable. Harold Landry should be long gone by now, but the Saints don't pick here. The 49ers do, and all the running backs are gone. The free agents, the 49ers lose Aaron Lynch and Elvis Dumerville to free agency. The 49ers say, you know what, screw it, let's take Harold Landry here because he's the only first-round talent on the board, or do they go with someone else? Because Harold Landry with Solomon...
Yeah, whose pick is this?
I don't remember. Who picked for the Saints in round 1? I think it was you, Thomas.
I think it was Ryan. Or was it?
Yeah, I thought I picked somebody to succeed underneath Drew Brees. I thought.
No, Ryan. Thomas picked Rashaan Evans in round 1. Remember with the Saints pick at 20?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I did choose.
So this 49ers pick is tough. Should I just give them Harold Landry because he's the only first-round prospect left on the board and he needs to be picked by now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
51. Yeah, we made Harold Landry wait 50. So Harold Landry fell out of the top 50. That's the huge shocker. We'll finish round 2, and then we're going to call it a show and quickly mention the top 5 players that fell to round 3. Number 51, I think this is the Broncos' second round pick here at 50. 50, yeah, because Vita Villa. 52 was the Marquez Haynes. We mocked him to. I'm just trying to remember where I put Marquez Haynes, the edge player. I think we mocked him to the Lions. Yeah, the Lions are on the clock. We'll give them Marquez Haynes out of Ole Miss, and he's an outside linebacker. He fits what they want to do perfectly. And Denver is back on the clock here at 53, Ryan. The Broncos, I can't remember what you did with the Broncos in the first round. Did you go offensive line?
I paired Connor Williams.
Connor Williams. So you already went offensive line. So you probably want a defensive player here. I'm just looking. He's on the board. There's another offensive tackle, Brian O'Neill. Lorenzo Carter's a 34 outside linebacker. Sean Dion Hamilton's the top inside linebacker. But Malik Jefferson, who I have a third-round grade on, is still there. So you could go with Connor Williams and reunite Malik and Connor in Denver.
Who would be the best available quarterback right now?
The best available quarterback, we have Falk and Browning, but we have third-round grades on them now, so they're both reaches at
Browning.
this point.
I want Browning to Denver. I like his accuracy. I like how he.
Browning
Even though he kind of I guess you'd say has that bad trajectory, I feel like he would probably develop well. And at this point, I'm willing. Denver just needs to get a quarterback.
Okay,
at this point.
perfect. Next up, we have the Colts, and I'm going to give them another outside linebacker to pair with their first-round pick in Arquano and Lorenzo Carter out of Georgia. So they double up at outside linebacker. Next up, we have the Jets. They have the Seahawks second-round pick. So the Jets, they haven't taken a quarterback yet, which is unreal. They took Bryce Love. They took a receiver. Do the Jets get Luke Falk here and reach for him even though he's a third-rounder? Or are we going to give the Jets someone like Will Clapp, the center out of LSU, because they do need a center, and Clapp's the best player on the board here at 37.
Give him the center.
All right. They get the center, Will Clapp. So next up, we have the Vikings. They could get Armani Watts to pair with Harrison Smith here at free safety. Do you want to do that, Ryan? Your Vikings are up. Or do you want to get an offensive lineman here? Because there's a few good ones. You went Deron Payne round 1. This is tough. Because a lot of the top players on the board are either safeties or corners.
Armani Watts is too good to pass up.
All right. I agree. He's the best player on the board. And since Ryan has not answered, we'll give the Vikings Armani Watts. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say Armani Watson. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Next up at number 55, the Carolina Panthers. They went wide receiver round 1. The best player on the board, the best 2 players on the board are offensive tackles Brian O'Neill and Jack Campos. But the Panthers don't need an offensive tackle, so we'll go to Ohio State, and we'll give the Panthers Denzel Ward, who I actually mocked to the Panthers in the second round. The next team on the clock is the Washington Redskins. I gave them Sean Dion Hamilton at this point, but I think we gave I can't remember. We gave the Redskins Wonecki in the first round. We can go Sean Dion Hamilton here to speed things up if you want. I doubt with Washington's offensive tackles both being extended, I doubt they go that route. So I'm guessing that's just the obvious pick. Next up is Pittsburgh. Does the Steelers reach for Luke Falk here in the late second round, or do they, because they do need a quarterback in case Big Ben decides to retire after this year. Do they get Luke Falk here even though it's a award?
Yes, give him Luke Falk.
All right, so
I think he would be good for Pittsburgh.
Luke Falk to Pittsburgh at, yeah, I have him going to the Bills at 95 in my mock with the Eagles pick, but he goes to Pittsburgh in this scenario, even though it is a bit of a reach. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. They don't need offensive tackle help. They don't need a defensive lineman. We'll give them Quinn Blanding. They are in the market for a safety. He fits what they want to do. Tampa Bay. Who picked for Tampa Bay? Was it? I think it was Thomas who picked for Tampa Bay. Brian O'Neill and Jack Campos are the top 2 players on the board. They need an offensive tackle. You want O'Neill out of Pittsburgh or Jack Campos, the Iowa State left tackle here for Tampa Bay?
I don't really know any of these guys.
Do you want to go with a different route? Taven Bryan, Dante Pettis. I can keep reading off names until you want someone. Chase Hansen, Utah safety's on the board here.
Who?
Chase Hansen, the Utah safety.
Oh, yeah, give him Hansen.
All right, the Buccaneers, they took another safety out of Texas A&M, Justin Evans, but they get another one in Chase Hansen here for depth purposes. Number 61 is the... I think Tampa Bay was picking at 61. That's right. So that means number 62 belongs to the Chiefs. The Chiefs get to make their first pick of the draft, and the Chiefs need a weapon, but there's no weapons on the board. This is an awful situation for the Chiefs to be in. But, Michael Gallup out of Colorado State, who is second in receiving yards, he goes to the Chiefs. Sorry, Patriots, I can't give you guys a receiver yet, but the Eagles are on the clock here. The top players on the board are both offensive linemen, but I know Thomas doesn't want to go that route with the Eagles. They could groom one of these guys for the future, though. They wouldn't have to start them. They could groom one of these guys for the future. Or they could go with another weapon, or maybe even a running back here, depending on who the top.
I want to give the Eagles a corner.
They got Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones last year. Adonis Alexander is on the board, though.
Oh, never mind then. I forgot about those guys. Just give them a tackle.
Patriots with number 64. This is tough because the Patriots have a good offensive tackle situation. I don't think, and we drafted Garcia and McDermott, so I don't think we go that route. We also have our defensive tackles under contract. Taven Bryan's a guy who's been talked about as a riser. I'm debating whether to double up at cornerback for the Patriots because I gave the Patriots Oliver in round 1. I really don't want to double up at corner with the Patriots, but I might have to. I'm going to go Taven Bryan, the guy Nick Kendall told me about. Nick Kendall, who wrote for the Broncos and told us Garrett Bowles was a top 10 talent last year. I'm gonna listen to him. He's telling me Taven Bryan is that good. I'm gonna go ahead and mock him to the Patriots and put him in a Lawrence Guy type of role, which means Jack Campos was the number 1 player on the board in round 3. The only other second-round talent that fell to the 3rd round is Adonis Alexander. So, other than that, pretty much everyone else who was in our top 64 got picked in the first 2 rounds. Oh, never mind. I'm taking that back. Clelin Ferrell, the 10th Clemson edge player, made it to 64. How the hell did we miss him? Forgetting he was on the board. Ugh,
My ball's already hurt.
That changes everything. It really does. How the hell did we miss Clelin Ferrell? We all deserve to be Rochambeau'd for that. Dabo Sweeney has the right to vote Rochambeau us for that. Okay? We'll end the show with Dabo Sweeney Rochambeauing us. And Thomas, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to what's his face, John Dunsworth, who played Jim Leahy on Trailer Park Boys. He passed away this past Monday. So rest in peace, Leahy. All you ever wanted was peace for your trailer park. And with that said, stay frosty. San Diego, Oregon, Pennsylvania, wherever Ryan lives. And Jason Bantle, I'm still upset with you for choosing the Jets. And I'm Thomas Coburn signing off. Bye-bye, Trump haters. And that's Chris Ransom, Draft Utopia Special Extraordinaire. And Ryan Romero, once again, our very, very special guest. And, ciao.
Yep. and we're going to leave the Google Hangout with the draft game. Jack Campos fell to round 3. I'm taking back the Patriots pick I made with Taven Bryan and taking Farrell. I don't think I can take back, though. So Dabo Sweeney, Rochambeau, all of us here from the Utopia of Sports. But we've signed off on the Google Hangout, but we're still on live on YouTube and TalkShoe. But we are about to sign off. Anything you guys want to add before we sign off?
Nope, I said everything I needed to say.
Same here. So long from the Utopia of Sports. We'll be back on Sunday morning. We got my picks on his show on Thursday last night, so I have no idea what we're going to talk about on Sunday morning, and I've got 2 days to sleep on it. So long. Enjoy this episode, and it's coming. Episode 350 of Draft Utopia will be next week, because there's this episode, there's the episode 350 is the London game. We're going to stream the Browns-Vikings London game on TalkShoe only. It won't be on YouTube, but we'll have live coverage of that for the 350th edition of Draft Utopia. We called the Dolphins-Saints game a few weeks ago, Ryan. That was fun, and your dad's team, you get to talk about them on a live game on TalkShoe, Ryan. How does that make you feel?
Oh, of course, it makes me feel good, especially because it's my dad's team.
And it's episode number 350. Can you believe it? At the end of the month, Draft Utopia will have reached 350 episodes.
Wow, we're actually on episode number 350 on that, huh?
Today's episode 347 on TalkShoe, but next Sunday will be episode 350. How insane is that?
All right, guys.
All right, so for all of us, this is the end of episode 347. 348 starts 9 a.m. on Sunday with Joey and myself and whatever the hell we decide to talk about. Until then, stay classy, San Diego. So long from the Utopia of Sports.
Go Nuggets.
Call recording has been completed.
The Go Nuggets thing got into YouTube. I'm not sure if it got into TalkShoe, but